Hello and welcome to Beyond Guilt and Repentance. This is a class for the month of Elul in 5786. That's 2026 by the Gregorian calendar. As we move through the month of Elul, it is a tradition to prepare ourselves for the days of awe with study and contemplation. So this mini course is intended to help you get ready for Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur and all the time in between. Let's start together with a prayer for Torah study. In some of my other videos, I go through each of these blessings and what each of the words means. I'm going to use the traditional masculine language from the Talmud Berachot 11b. But if you prefer, I have included the text from the non-binary Hebrew project and feminine God language instead. If you don't connect with God language at all, that's fine. Just hold a kavanah, an intention for dedicating this study, and perhaps say the last three words together with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav, vetzivanu le'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who separates us out to make us holy with his mitzvot, with his commandments, with his pathways of connection, and who commanded us, or gave us this pathway of connection, to busy ourselves with words of Torah. Now I want to start off with this quote from Pirkei Avot, or Mishnah Avot. In English it says, Joshua ben Berachia used to say, appoint for yourself a teacher and acquire for yourself a companion, and judge all men with the scale weighted in his favor. So it's traditional when we study Jewish texts that we don't study them all by ourselves. In addition to the teacher, we have a friend to study with. And I highly encourage you to find a friend to watch these videos with, or to watch them separately and then get together to study the texts. You learn so much more when you read and discuss the text with another peer, disagree about things, debate them, listen to each other's ideas and different ways of seeing things. It is in that conversation and that push and pull that you get to understand the text so much better. I also encourage you that as you're listening to the things that I say, don't take them just as face value. I may be a teacher, but I am by no means perfect, and by no means do I know all that there is to know. So go ahead and debate with me and disagree with me and work through your own logical arguments or ideas as you do that in order to help yourself understand even better. So today we're going to be talking about the very first Yom Kippur. We're going to look at the text of Leviticus chapters 10 through 16 to try to understand why we even have Yom Kippur and what that might mean for us today. Now, that's a lot of text. We're not going to read every last word of the whole text. We're going to read the first part, then we're going to kind of skim through, and then we're going to read chapter 16. So let's jump into that. All right, so we're looking at this text on the website sefaria.org, and we're using the revised JPS 2023 English translation. I'm just going to read in English. So you may wonder why we're starting with chapter 10. We'll get to that in just a moment. Now, Aaron's son, Nadav and Avihu, each took his fire pan, put fire in it, and laid incense on it. And they offered before God alien fire, which had not been enjoined upon them. And fire came forth from God and consumed them. Thus they died by God's will. Then Moses said to Aaron, "This is what God meant by saying, 'Through those near to me I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people.'" And Aaron was silent. So we start out here in Leviticus 10 with this story about the sons of Aaron who brought strange fire to the holy altar. And what happened? Fire came out of the tent and uh, and incinerated them, apparently. Um, and then Moses turns to his brother and says, "Through those near to me, I show myself holy." Uh, what does this even mean? What is this thing that has just happened? Many people read this as Nadav and Avihu did something wrong, did something terrible, and they were destroyed for it. But if you explore the commentaries, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with Sepharia already, if you click on any of the verses, you can bring up commentaries here in this side, and I highly recommend that you do that, as well as Googling for other commentaries. But if you read the commentaries, some rabbis see this very differently. They see this as a great desire to serve God that Nadav and Avihu had, and that the thing that they brought was so wonderful, so magnificent, that God just devoured them along with their offering. And it's also pointed out by them that there seems to be some sense of sorrow or discomfort by the side of God afterwards, that this horrible thing happened. Because later, when you see these commandments of the things that you should do, it says, "Do it this way so that you may live. Do it this way so that you do not die. Do it exactly like I told you so that you don't die." And so one of the teachings that comes out of this is that it is possible to do something that is in every way good and honorable and showing your love for God, but it crosses some boundary. And it can cause your death, not because you're evil, but for some other reason. But here's the thing: death itself brings tuma. Tuma is translated so often as impurity, but it's not impurity in the way that a lot of people today think of it as, like, evil, bad. This kind of impurity is simply something that does not, can't exist in the same space as the holy work of the temple or the holy work of the sanctuary. So let's take a look at what happens starting in verse 12. Moses spoke to Aaron and to his remaining sons, Eleazar and Itamar. "Take the grain offering that is left over from God's offerings by fire and eat it unleavened beside the altar, for it is most holy. You shall eat it in the sacred precinct, since it is your due, and that of your sons, from God's offerings by fire, for so I have commanded. But the breast of elevation offering and the thigh of gift offering, you and your wife and your sons and daughters with you may eat in any pure place, for they have been assigned as a due to you and your sons from the Israelite sacrifices of well-being. Together with the fat of fire offering, they must present the thigh of gift offering and the breast of elevation offering, which are to be elevated as an elevation offering before God, and which are to be your due and that of your sons with you for all time, as God has commanded. Then Moses inquired about the goat of purgation offering, and it had already been burned. He was angry with Eleazar and Itamar, Aaron's remaining sons, and said, "Why did you not eat the purgation offering in this sacred area? For it is most holy, and it is what was given to you to remove the guilt of the community and to make expiation for them before God. Since its blood was not brought inside the sanctuary, you should certainly have eaten it in the sanctuary as I commanded." So, what is this thing? What is this purgation offering? Why do they need to clear out sins? Or what is this purgation we're talking about? So, it, excuse me. So, in the Hebrew, it says that this is to Natan Lachem Leset, to give to them the removal, et avon, the sin, ha'edah, of the community, lekapel alehem, to cover over them, or to the translation says make expiation for them, lifnei Hashem, before God. So in order to take away the sin, in order to take away any of the things that make you impure, they need to engage in eating this holy sacrifice in the holy place. There are specific steps that need to happen in a specific place, in a specific time. But this is a special time because Aaron himself is in mourning, and his sons too are in mourning for the two sons that just died. And Aaron spoke to Moses, "See, this day they brought their purgation offering and their burnt offering before God, and such things have befallen me. Had I eaten purgation offering today, would God have approved?" So Aaron is saying, after this horrible thing that has just happened, could I possibly be able to take away the sins of the people when I'm in mourning, when such an awful thing has just happened? And Moses heard this and he approved. He understood. In Hebrew it says, "V'yitav be'enav," and it was made good in his eyes. And now, right after this episode in which Nadav and Abihu have given this strange fire, been consumed by the fire and killed, and uh, their father Aaron and their brothers are in mourning, but told specifically not to mourn for them, um, we suddenly get several chapters of totally unrelated commandments. We get commandments about food that the Israelite people are allowed to eat, and we get we get more commandments about what is clean and what is not clean, what is an abomination and what is impure, and what people are supposed to do if they should touch something that is impure. And then as we move in to chapter 12, we get into a discussion about childbirth and the period in which a woman is considered impure, which I really dislike this English translation because tum'ah, to be tameh is not the same thing as to be impure in the like you're dirty, yucky, or evil sort of way, but simply that that status is a status that cannot be mixed together with the holy work of the sanctuary. You can't have a woman who just gave birth go into the temple because it will mess up the holy work that happens there. Now, a slight side track here, a little tangent. I want to tell you a story, uh, something that I learned from Lakota women when I was in North Dakota. I was taught by Lakota women that when a woman is on her menstrual cycle, that she needs to be careful around the men's medicine. So a sacred fire, which is lit by a man, which is man's medicine, if she gets too close to it, if she were to spit into it or something else, it would mess up his medicine. And a woman who is on her menstrual cycle should not touch, for instance, the sage that a man is going to be using for cleansing. And what they taught me was that it's not that the women are bad, but that their magic, their medicine, they don't call it magic, their medicine, their sacredness is like the wrong kind of sacredness. It doesn't mix with the men's sacredness. But on the flip side, when that sacredness is held in its own space in a women's camp, that the women have special power to pray and to ask for help. Now, that cultural insight gave me deep insight into this idea about women's tum'ah during the time of being on their menstrual cycle or in the time right after childbirth. It's not that a woman is in a bad or dirty or yucky state. It's that she's in her own state of medicine. She's in her own state of sacredness. And that particular sacred state doesn't blend with the sacred state of the sorts of things that are happening in the temple. And we need to keep those things separate, which is why this is a time of separation. So we continue in chapter 12 with more information about how this time of separation, how long it goes, and how it comes to an end. That there is a mikvah, ritual bath, that there is a sacrifice, an offering at the end of it, and then she becomes tahara. She becomes pure, prepared to be in the same space as the specific sacred work of the temple. And now we go into another chapter that's all about tum'ah, the things that shouldn't be mixed with the temple sacred spaces. We look at skin afflictions and tatsria, which is often translated as leprosy, this white skin decoloration, this rash, whatever it is. So this is a thing which also forces a person to be separate. And there's this whole discussion about what this thing is and how the priest is supposed to figure out that it's that thing, and that they're to be considered impure or tuma, and to be separated from the community, right? And then we have other kinds of afflictions that are described, and how one should deal with it, and how this uh, requires the person to be separated from anybody who's going to be in touch with the sacred stuff of the temple. And then at the end, again, we have what to do when it's all done, how you clean it up. And even if there's an affection, an infection in uh, cloth, how you're supposed to deal with that in order to get that thing that doesn't mix with the sacredness of the temple out of the community. More on leprosy. Do you see a pattern here? We're talking about all of these things that can't be in the same place as the temple. And I'm just skimming through this just to show you, and you can sort of see pieces of it. There's these eruptive plagues. There's um, what happens when you get this greenish or reddish streaks in your house. Um, so again, this is a kind of infection, right? Now it's an infection of the house. So we have, again, how to purge the house, how to get this thing out of the house. And so now we know how to deal with different kinds of diseases of the skin and how to purify them after somebody is healed from them, how to deal with some sort of thing that's wrong with the cloth and how to take it out, how to deal with what basically looks like mold or mildew or something like that in a house, and how we're supposed to purify these things. And we can discuss on a practical level how this is a matter of public health. But in this particular context, between what happened with Nadav and Avihu and where we're going, we can understand all of these things as having to do with this issue of purity and impurity, of what can exist within the space of the sacred temple and the work of, or the sanctuary, because they're still in the desert, what can exist within the realm of this sacred space and what will not mix with it, what will make bad things happen. Um, Again, we've got another chapter, chapter 15, with more about discharges and what to do with that. And, you know, you need to, when you're healed, you need to wash and, become cleansed. And then you need to bring an offering in order to complete the cleansing, right? So, again, more about different ways in which somebody can become impure and what to do with the bedding and what to do with a person's clothes, and that on the 8th day a woman will take turtle doves and pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Again, another ritual of cleansing in order to make it so that she can be back in holy space again. So we've got all of these different chapters between what just happened with Nadav and Avihu. And now finally, we get to chapter 16, the name of which is Acharei Mot, which means after the death. So now here we are, 6 chapters later, and we're finally dealing with after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron. And what happens in chapter 16? God said to Moses, "Tell your brother Aaron that he is not to come at will into the shrine behind the curtain in front of the cover that is upon the ark, lest he die." So this verse is saying, don't come into the Holy of Holies whenever you feel like it, because if you do that, You might die. For I appear in the cloud over the cover. Thus only Aaron shall enter the shrine with a bull of the herd for a purgation offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He shall be dressed in a sacral linen tunic, or a sacred linen tunic, with linen breeches next to his flesh, and be girt with a linen sash, and he shall wear a linen turban. They are sacral vestments. He shall bathe in water and then put them on. So even the priest has to bathe himself, prepare himself, purify himself, and then wear special clothing in order to go into this holy space. And from the Israelite community he shall take 2 he-goats for a purgation offering and a ram for a burnt offering. Aaron is to offer his own bull of purgation offering. So he has to offer his own sacrifice to make expiation for himself and for his household. First, before he can do any of the other work, he has to make sure that he is in alignment with the sacredness of the place and the work that he's about to do. Aaron shall take the 2 he-goats and let them stand before God at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And he shall place lots upon the 2 goats, one marked for God and the other marked for Azazel. Aaron shall bring forward the goat designated by lot for God, which he is to offer as a purgation offering, while the goat designated by lot for Azazel shall be left standing alive before God, to make expiation with it, and to send it off into the wilderness for Azazel. Aaron shall then offer his bull of purgation offering to make expiation for himself and his household. He shall slaughter his bull of purgation offering, and he shall take a pan full of glowing coals scooped from the altar before God, and 2 handfuls of finely ground aromatic incense, and bring this behind the curtain. He shall put the incense on the fire before God, so that the cloud from the incense screens the cover that is over the ark of the pact, lest he die. Again, make sure you do this exactly according to my requirements, because if you don't, you might die, just like Nadav and Abihu did before. He shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger over the cover on the east side, and in front of the cover he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. He shall then slaughter the people's goat of purgation offering, bring its blood behind the curtain, and do with its blood as he has done with the blood of the bull. He shall sprinkle it over the cover and in front of the cover. Thus he shall purge the shrine of the impurity and transgression of the Israelites, whatever their sins, and he shall do the same for the tent of meeting, which abides with them in the midst of their impurity. When he goes to make expiation in the shrine, nobody else shall be in the tent of meeting until he comes out. When he has made expiation for himself and his household and for the whole congregation of Israel, he shall go out to the altar that is before God and purge it. He shall take some of the blood of the bull and of the goat and apply it to each of the horns of the altar. And the rest of the blood he shall sprinkle on it with his finger 7 times. Thus he shall purify it of the defilement of the Israelites and consecrate it. When he has finished purging the shrine, the tent of meeting, and the altar, the live goat shall be brought forward. Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities and transgressions of the Israelites, whatever their sins, putting them on the head of the goat, and it shall be sent off to the wilderness through a designated agent. Thus the goat shall carry on it all their iniquities to an inaccessible region, and the goat shall be set free in the wilderness. And Aaron shall go into the tent of meeting, take off the linen vestments that he put on when he entered the shrine, and leave them there. He shall bathe in water in the holy precinct and put on his vestments. Then he shall come out and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, making expiation for himself and for the people. The fat of the purgation offering he shall turn into smoke on the altar. The one who set the Azazel goat free shall wash their clothes and bathe in water, and after that they may re-enter the camp. Now notice, the person who set the Azazel goat free has to cleanse himself before he can come back into the community as well. So again, we have another case of preparing oneself to return and be in the sacred space, to make oneself uh, fit for being in that sacred space. The bull of purgation offering and the goat of purgation offering, whose blood was brought in to purge the shrine, shall be taken outside the camp, and their hides, flesh, and dung shall be consumed in fire. The one who burned them shall wash their clothes and bathe in water, and after that may re-enter the camp. And this shall be to you a law for all time. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall practice self-denial, and you shall do no manner of work, neither the citizen nor the alien who resides among you. For on this day atonement shall be made for you to purify you of all your sins. You shall be pure before God. It shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for you, and you shall practice self-denial. It is a law for all time. The priest who has been anointed and ordained to serve as priest in place of his father shall make expiation. He shall put on the linen vestments, the sacral vestments. He shall purge the innermost shrine. He shall purge the tent of meeting and the altar. And he shall make expiation for the priests and for all the people of the congregation. This shall be to you a law for all time, to make atonement for the Israelites for all their sins once a year. And Moses did as God had commanded him. So we see that this this ritual is a ritual of cleansing with rituals of cleansing within it. The high priest has to prepare things. He has to cleanse himself before he can prepare things. Then he prepares things and he has to cleanse himself again. He cleanses himself both with water and with putting on special clothes, and he cleanses himself through the act of a sacrifice. And only then can he cleanse the people. And he makes sacrifices for himself, for his family, for the priests, and for all the people of Israel. So why would he have to do this once a year, deep clean, if people are bringing sacrifices on a regular basis when they've sinned, right? Or uh, when somebody, not just when you've sinned, but also when something has happened to bring you out of alignment with the sacred work of the temple, you're also supposed to cleanse yourself and then come and bring a sacrifice, right? So if everybody has been doing that as they're supposed to do, why would you need this once a year deep clean? Well, one way of thinking about this is that, well, maybe not everybody does all of the sacrifices they're supposed to. Maybe because they don't realize they need to do a sacrifice, or maybe somebody lives too far away and doesn't get to it. That doesn't really hold when they're in the desert. But maybe there's something that happens and somebody doesn't manage to do what they need to do. But what if everybody is doing everything exactly as they're supposed to, doing all of the cleansing rituals, whether it's because of sickness in their tent, or something that's not right in a piece of cloth, or something that happens on their skin, or whether it's about childbirth or a discharge, or a sin. Any of those things, right? They're all doing exactly what they need to do throughout the year, exactly on time as they're supposed to do it, in order to keep themselves in alignment with the sacred work of the temple. Well, perhaps there is still, even with all of that, some amount of tum'ah, some amount of this energetic disconnect that does not work correctly or does not work in partnership with the sacred work of the temple, that still needs to be cleansed in order to keep the work in the temple working properly. And if that's the case, then even if everybody is doing everything exactly right, sometimes you still need to do a deep cleanse once a year. You might think of this in a metaphor as thinking about your house. If you clean your house every week, you do little cleansing every day, still, if you're the sort of person who does a once a year spring cleaning, you can still be amazed at how much stuff needs to be deep cleaned, even though you've been doing laundry this whole time, even though you've been cleaning the floors this whole time, you've been dusting things this whole time. Still, when you go in for that deep clean, you discover some dirt in some wild place that you didn't even think of. Or you discover that by doing a deep clean instead of the normal clean that you do on a regular basis, that something turns out way cleaner than you thought it even could be. You couldn't even remember that it used to be this clean when it was new, right? So that's a metaphor, perhaps, for what this work of Yom Kippur is like on a spiritual level, on a soul level. Um, and maybe even, if you think of it in sort of anthropological terms, uh, some kind of magical level, right? We think of magic as the stuff that other people do, and what we're doing is religion. Some people don't like the term magic, but for me, I find the term magic to be useful because, in my mind, when I think of the word magic, I think of these spiritual things that we can't explain with science and physics, but that have some sort of metaphysical thing going on behind the scenes, right? So there's some sort of metaphysical uh, crud that is accruing not just to an individual, but to the people as a whole, and perhaps even to the land as a whole, that needs to be cleansed every year. And the first time this ever happens, the first time this issue ever comes up, is after these two brothers, sons of Aaron, thinking that they were bringing such a great offering to God, brought a strange offering that was not according to the instructions that God gave, and they got devoured by the fire. Now, I hope that you will take some time with a chavruta partner, with a study partner, to go through these texts more deeply yourself, look at some commentaries, discuss them, and think about what I've said, and consider what this might mean for modern Yom Kippur. We don't have a temple anymore. We're not doing the sacred work of sacrifices on the temple or any of the other, sacred things that happened in the temple. So, what what is this purity that we're trying to attain? Can we attain it? What's this all about? We'll be studying more about that in the coming days, in the coming lessons. But for right now, read these texts and discuss them with your friend. And I'd love to hear what sorts of thoughts you've been having. Lehitraut. I'll see you next time.